Ambassador, lately in Preševa, Bujanovac and Medveđa, the situation is unpleasant. There, the Serbs are using also their power, their force, and bringing more gendarmeria, their police forces and military forces, and also what happened with the monument that they have there, they had in Preševa, so they removed it, and they are provoking to a new conflict in Preševa, Bujanovac and Medveđa. What would be your comment, since you have enough experience in Kosovo before and during the war in Kosovo and after the war, of course?
Well, my experience with disagreements between a Serb government and the people that are living under their control was not a very pleasant one. I saw how the Serb government in Belgrade treated the 90% of the population of Kosovo that were Albanians. So this other group of Albanians living now under the control of the government in Serbia, in Belgrade, you know, I really worry about them. I think they have to be very careful because I know what governments in Belgrade are capable of. I would say that, you know, if the Serb government in Belgrade really wants all of its citizens to be loyal to the government, to be loyal to the country, they have to treat all people the same. They can't treat people on the basis of their ethnicity, which is obviously what they're doing in the Preševa Valley. I've often said, you know, if the Serb government in Belgrade had treated the Kosovars, the Albanians in Kosovo, as they were treating Serbs in the country, they would never have had this incredible conflict that they had in the 1990s. I'm just hoping that the government in Belgrade understands that they have to treat all their citizens of all ethnicities as loyal citizens and not treat some as though they are somehow not first-class citizens. That's a big mistake on Belgrade's part. I'm hoping that the people in the Preševa Valley understand this, make their demands, make their political demands, make their social and economic demands of the government, and if they're not treated the way Serb citizens are treated, then they have to complain. They have to do something about it.
What is your comment on the talks between Pristina and Belgrade that are happening nowadays? Should they include Preševa Valley situation?
To answer your second part of your question first, yes, obviously if they're sitting down to talk about relations between Albanians and Serbs, they obviously have to talk about those Albanians who are now living under Serb control. But in terms of my opinions of where the talks are going, I'm not very optimistic. You know, I've watched for, what are we talking about now, 13 years, in which Belgrade has just not given an inch. They are not serious about negotiating differences. They just want to dominate the talks and get their position. It's either their position or they're not going to go along. So I'm not very optimistic about the talks per se, but if they're having talks, they should certainly talk about the Preševa Valley.
Should U.S. foreign policy change a little bit toward the Albanians in East Kosovo or Preševa Valleys, a little bit changing to make a demand on Serbian government to do some changes there and to stop the pressure against Albania?
I would like to see, anytime the American government sees that the government in Belgrade is not treating all the citizens of Serbia as equal, that they should voice their concerns. They should talk about it. They should act on it, and let the world know that they're not going to tolerate the same thing that was done in Kosovo by the Serbs. That they really have to tell the government in Belgrade, we expect that all citizens of Serbia are treated equally.
You know a lot about the war in Kosovo, and you were there where the war was happening. And nowadays, you have ex-KLA members are being jailed in Kosovo. It was Fatmir Limaj and his comrades. Is also now the group from Llapit, Commander Remy, and other commanders around the Llapit area. So, what do you think? Is this fair enough? Because they had before this same court.
Yeah, well, you know, when you look at the results in The Hague, say, of trials against Albanian commanders, Commander Ramush, Fatmir Limën, they went to the Hague, they spent years there, they went through long, involved trials, and they were declared innocent. The trials that are sort of coming to bear in Kosovo, for instance, of Fatmir Limën, is more got to do with internal things to Kosovo, post-war things, I think, rather than what happened during the war. I think what was, you know, the prosecutors in The Hague tried everything they could to come up with evidence proving that Fatmir Limën was a war criminal, Ramush Haradin was a war criminal, and they failed miserably. Why? Because they weren't war criminals. What's happening now in Kosovo now is more looking at different types of accusations. You know, and as long as the people who are brought before justice in Kosovo receive a fair trial, then fine, I'm for it. But I was very upset with what The Hague was doing, trying to show some balance between the war criminals from Serbia, you know, who did such horrible things, and 2 or 3 commanders from the KLA who they wanted to show some sort of balance, and that's not what justice is about.
And now in Kosovo there is no Serbian criminal, even if we still are missing about 2,000 people, 2,000 Albanians, and we lost 13,000, and we have about 20,000 Albanian women were being raped. So it's nothing happening against Serbian.
No, there were real, you know, the balance of who was committing war crimes during the conflict in Kosovo overwhelmingly on the side of Serb military security forces, and doing it with all the powers of a government. You know, and the KLA was out in the hills with none of those powers of government, and to accuse them of having, you know, committed a few incidents and trying to balance that against the massive crimes that were committed by Serb security forces, I think is ridiculous. And I think The Hague has finally come to understand that.
But still in Kosovo, inside they are putting them in.
Yeah.
So you disagree with this, what they are doing?
I'm going to wait to see what they do in the way of prosecutions, if they really process these cases under the rule of law, under some system of justice. But if any of these things are being done for political reasons, that's not the way you get justice. Okay?
Thank you very much,
Ambassador. My pleasure. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Ambassador Walker, one of the biggest helper for Albanian cause.
Thanks.